Well, hello again, 1020 folks. Today I want to talk to you about the Paper 3 assignment sheet in this first video, and then we'll talk about the elements of drama. So if you want to follow along with me, go to Content toward the top of our Brightspace page, and then to Major Paper Assignments and Related Materials in that left-hand sidebar, and then click on Paper 3 assignment sheet. So for this third major paper, final major paper of the course, you'll be happy to know, the only other big thing we have after this obviously is the final exam itself. You'll write a 3 to 4 page literary analysis of the film version of Amistad. And note that you can also certainly quote from Alex Pate's novel based on the screenplay of Amistad, which we will be reading together. So I've provided you with the ability to watch the film and to also read Alex Pate's novel. And I strongly urge you to be aware of the spelling of Pate's first name. It's Alexs. So it's a very unusual spelling, Alexs. And your autocorrect feature on your computer will change this to the more common spelling of Alex, which of course mine did as well. So do be aware of that and make sure to correct it as you're writing paper 3 so that you don't get counted off for misspelling that name. So here are some options. There are actually 3 different options from which you can choose in terms of how you might approach paper 3. First of all, you can carefully, thoughtfully analyze a character, so just one, or characters, more than one, from the above film and or from the novel. And again, the novel is based on the screenplay of the film, so they're essentially identical in terms of the information that they give you. However, the novel may give you more information in places than the film does, and vice versa. So those are kinds of the little subtle differences there. So when you're analyzing character, remember to consider the character's own words and actions, what other characters say about him or her, and the character's physical description. So this is very much like paper 1 when we did a character analysis, if you choose option number 1. And also remember, character invariably connects to theme, that main message that's coming through in this film and or the novel. So how does the character you're analyzing contribute to the work's overall theme? And if you're doing more than one character, you'd think about that with all of the ones that you're doing. What do the critics have to say about their analysis of the character or characters that you might have chosen? And then how does the character reveal the theme? So you can refer to the elements of drama, which is the other sheet that I'm going to review with you here in just a little bit, and how to analyze a film documents. So that's the first option. If you do more than one character, I would urge you not to do too many. If you try to take on, 4 or 5 different characters, you're probably opening the door for a paper that's not going to be as focused. So I would urge you to stick with maybe just 2, certainly no more than 3, and 2 might be better. But the second option is to analyze the main and secondary themes in Amistad. So certainly if you chose option 1 and you're writing about character, you would definitely want to connect to theme. But if you chose option 2, your main focus would be on the theme or themes. So you would be considering how all the elements of drama that we're going to talk about in this other video combine together to reveal the themes. So setting, plot, characterization, rising, falling action, dialogue, irony, all those things we're going to talk about in the elements of drama video. And then you would consider, what do the critics and the experts have to say about their own analysis of theme in the film? And again, you can certainly quote from Pate to cement ideas about Amistad, the film version. And then thirdly, compare and contrast the film version of Amistad with one other text we've read together this semester, which is kind of an interesting option. So it might be a text from our fiction or our poetry units. What similarities do they share? What differences do you notice? you want to find a commonality maybe between Amistad and another reading. So some common element, maybe a common theme that's running through. Be sure to notice all the elements of drama and film that we've discussed in class. Refer to the elements of drama and how to analyze the film documents again to assist you. What do the critics have to say again about their own analyses? And you may also, again, quote from Pate as well as, underscoring ideas about the film itself. So here are the important dates for this paper. Monday the 22nd will be our idea workshop for paper 3. So you'll go to the assignments tab, you'll look for the idea worksheet for paper 3. You'll follow the instructions there and upload before 11:59 p.m. And then you want to look at my feedback, what I'm going to have to say about your idea worksheet responses, because that will help direct you as you're writing the final draft. Tuesday the 23rd, that's that very next day, and we have to sort of move forward, rather quickly since we're coming on down to the end of the semester. But the 23rd will be the self-review day for paper 3. So remember, with paper 1 we had peer review, with paper 2 we had pre-writing. Now with this last paper we have a self-review day. So before 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday night the 23rd, you want to complete the self-review. So go to discussions, it's in the discussion board. Look for the week 14 self-review for paper 3 discussion board and follow the directions there. And remember, 10 points are deducted from that paper 3 grade if you do not submit your draft and go through that self-review process. And this is for your edification. We want you, we the English department, we the professors of English, want you to now assume responsibility a lot more for your own writing and editing processes. So we want you to be able to look at a past paper and look at the comments that I made on it and the feedback you received and enact those issues that you might have had and those suggestions that I made into a final draft of paper 3. So be cognizant, be aware of, oh, I wrote comma splices, I wrote fragments, my thesis wasn't clear, whatever it might have been. And try to avoid those same errors in the final draft of paper 3. So you then submit that final draft Monday the 29th after having completed the self-review, and you want to submit it no later than 11:59 p.m. on the 29th. And remember the policy, 10 points are deducted from that paper grade for every calendar day the paper is late, including the day that it's due and weekends. And papers aren't accepted after 5 days. And that's especially pertinent right now because of how close we are to the end of the semester. So specifics, the paper should be 3 to 4 pages long, so a minimum of at least 3 full pages. If you don't have the full pages, then you're going to get points deducted. Always type double-spaced, Times New Roman 12-point font, standard margins. You need to document your primary source, which will be the film version of Amistad. And depending on which option you choose, perhaps you might also be documenting Pate's novel version of Amistad. And obviously, if you choose option 3, you'll document the film, novel, and the text that you're comparing it to. So you have all of that, and in addition, you need to find 2 more sources. So 2 additional secondary sources beyond your primary source or sources, right? So beyond the film, beyond the book, and beyond, if you choose option 3, the 2 texts that you're comparing. And so that means that you find 2 additional sources. You need to incorporate quotations within the body of your paper from those sources and on a separate works cited page. So let me tell you about these 2 additional secondary sources. You want to look at maybe 2 different versions of critical analysis from an expert on your chosen element. So character, theme, Compare contrast between Amistad and another text that we've read this semester. So you want to find something reliable. So you could choose a credible interview with the author of the novel, or with the film's director, or with the film's actors, or with the film's screenplay writers. And you can find a lot of those interviews on YouTube. If you do a Google search, they'll come up. You also might use as one of your secondary sources biographical information on the film's author or director and or actors, or historical information regarding enslavement that connects to the film. So remember, a lot of the characters in this film and novel were real living, breathing people. And so, you can find tons of historical information on people like John Quincy Adams, for example, and Cinque. And so, it would be really interesting to have a section of your paper that talks about the real historical story of Amistad and how it might differ from the film and or the novel. So remember, you can use those secondary sources to support your ideas about theme or character, whatever it is, or you can disagree with them. So your goal is to write a careful analysis of one of the noted elements above as it relates to Amistad. You're attempting to explain how one of the following elements is working in the film to further our understanding of overall meaning. So either character or theme, or you're comparing, contrasting Amistad with one other work if you choose option 3. And you can choose again as your 2 secondary sources from the following: critical evaluations from professional literary and film drama critics, and you'll find those in our library databases. Credible interviews with the film's authors, directors, actors. Biographical information on the film's authors, directors, actors, and or historical information that connects to the film and to the characters in the film who were actual living, breathing people. So as you're researching, you want to notice every technique that the playwright, and that's what we call someone who writes a screenplay for a play or a film. And notice how it's spelled, Playwright, playwright. So not the author really of the film, but the playwright or the writer-director has used. And again, those 2 documents, the elements of drama and how to analyze a film, will be helpful. So ask yourself these questions as you're thinking and as you're beginning to write. Have I selected one of those 3 options listed above and found, in addition to my primary sources, 2 secondary sources to support my claim? So I might just have Amistad, the film, as a primary source. I might have both Amistad and the novel as my primary sources. I might have Amistad and the novel version and one other text that I'm comparing them to if I choose option 3 as my primary sources. So in addition to those, I have to have 2 more. And those are my secondary sources. Have I written a compelling thesis statement? So my thesis needs to say something more meaningful than just the film Amistad has 2 main themes, because that's a fact, right? It might have more than 2 main themes, but it definitely has 2. And that's not a statement that raises a point that's debatable or interesting. Excuse me. Have I checked my topic sentences, so the first sentence of every paragraph, to make sure I'm making points of analysis rather than just summarizing what happened in the movie or in the book? I want to explain what meaning this has. Like, how does this relate to theme? How does it relate to something that we can all feel and be made better, wiser humans due to this film or this novel? Does my intro have a hook? So have I begun my paper with a line that makes my reader want to keep reading? And have I included the following information in my introductory paragraph? The title of the work, and I need to punctuate it correctly. With a film title or a book title, these are larger works, right? These are big works. Films take a long time to view. Novels are big works. So those titles are always placed in italics, not quotation marks. But with a shorter work like an article or a short story or a poem, those titles are placed in quotation marks. So if I get the rule in my head and memorize it, I won't get point deductions ever again for that issue. So do I have the title of the work punctuated correctly, the full name of the playwright or the author or director, the reason the film has meaning, and then finally at the end of my introductory paragraph, my thesis. Have I remembered play film titles are always italicized? So every time I use the word Amistad, I'm going to put it in italics. And the names of ships are always placed in italics. So if I talk about La Amistad, the ship, or the Tacora, I'm going to italicize those ship names. Have I remembered to refer to the playwright or the author, director, or actor, or whomever I'm talking about by last name only after I've introduced him or her fully in my intro? That's standard college protocol in writing. Have I used literary present tense? So again, literature can be read again and again. What we write today, someone 1,000 years from now might read. And it might seem just as real and alive to them as it does in this moment. Just as we read things people wrote hundreds and thousands of years ago. So therefore, the stories and the characters always exist into perpetuity, right? And therefore, we use present tense to refer to actions and characters. Here's an example. Amistad continues, not continued, but continues present tense to explore the theme of the importance of self-identity as Cinque struggles, not struggled, past tense, but struggles, present tense, to find inner strength through his journey. And then in parentheses, I've cited with the director's name, Spielberg, because I'm talking about the film. So since it's a film, I don't have to have any more information other than Spielberg, as long as I've made it clear I'm talking about the film in my paper, right? But there is a way that I can actually cite the exact section from that film if I want to. And you'll find that in the legal Siddle, the Little Seagull Handbook. Woo, it's been a long day. It's been a long day. But if you just put Spielberg in parentheses, you're good. Have I used formal academic language? Do I have correct in-text citations? Do I have quotations? I better have them cited correctly in MLA. Do I have a worked cited page at the end, cited in MLA formatting? Have I been careful not to plagiarize? I've got to document all my sources. Have I included quotes from the film and from the two other credible sources whose views I've chosen to explore? Have I remembered to incorporate quotes smoothly by introducing them with a phrase of my own and not dropping them? So here's an example. Amistad further reveals its recurring theme of justice through Cinque's thought-provoking questions regarding the core principles of American values, quote, what kind of place is this where you almost mean what you say, where laws almost work? How can you live like that? And again, I cite with Spielberg, the director of the film. So notice that colon just before the quote. If that colon had been a period, my quote would have been dropped because it would appear all by itself as a sentence. And I can't do that, right? I've got to incorporate it. I can use the colon method here because my sentence just before the quote is an independent clause. It's a complete sentence. It has a subject, it has a verb, it makes sense on its own. It can stand alone as a complete sentence and complete thought. So I can use a colon rather than a period, and presto chango, I have incorporated my quote. Do I have a fully developed intro, body, and conclusion? Have I answered the questions at some point along the way? So what? Who cares? So has my paper kind of made it clear what about this film is important? Why does it matter? Why should we care about this story? Have I included an analysis of the film's language, rhythm, tone, style, if applicable to the option I'm choosing, and any other important techniques that may relate to the option that I'm choosing? So now I give you examples of a possible thesis and game plan for the various options. So this first one, we're talking about character. In Steven Spielberg's moving film Amistad, the character of Cinque represents the courage and determination of a man who values freedom over all else. Through a careful analysis of Cinque's words and actions, along with other characters' reactions to him, one may see the way in which he reveals the director's overarching theme of the inner struggle between a justifiable need for self-defense and the resulting moral consequences such action may cause for others. Decades later, this character continues to allow audiences to relate to him in a genuinely sensitive manner. So, for this kind of thesis and intro, we need to carefully consider the character of Cinque. What do his dialogues, his conversations with other people, and the words he says, and the thoughts he thinks tell us about who he is? How do his actions reveal his true nature? What do the responses and reactions of other characters tell us about him? You'll need to also consider the manner in which his character relates to theme and reveals the theme. What consequences occur when Cinque chooses to lead this uprising aboard the ship? So people are killed. They're killed very brutally. So he has to make a choice between this justifiable need to defend himself and survive and the resulting consequences that happen as a result of that, right? That decision. Now, I can tell you, if someone came to my house and to your house, or if we were out in the yard and someone came along and kidnapped us and drug us away from our family and friends and put us on board a horrible slave ship in the belly of that ship, and sent us off on the ocean, we would definitely feel that we had a justifiable right to fight back as well and to defend our lives and to save ourselves. So Cinque knows that he has a justifiable need to defend himself and his own life and to save his own life and the lives of the other people around him. He also knows that if this uprising happens, people are going to die. And what about when he later rises up in the American prison? So he's weighing, are my actions justified? And every time he says, yes, they are, right? And we have that moving moment when he says, give us free. And so how does this inner conflict that he experiences, and he's always a little reluctant to think of himself as a leader, as that brave lion killer, that he was known for being before the Amistad incident occurred. He's always a little unsure there for a while, and then finally he steps into that role. What does this reveal, these choices, what do they reveal about him? That's just one way to look at his character. Option 2, director Steven Spielberg explores several interlocking themes in his iconic film version of the novel by the same title, Amistad. Among them, the jarring truth of human enslavement, the pain of its consequences, and the trauma of racial prejudice. Each of these themes reveals a raw, emotionally gripping drama that continues to reach audiences around the globe. So if you're going to write an effective paper from that kind of thesis, you've got to show your reader through quotes from the film and the words of the two secondary sources you find to focus on how these themes play out through the means of character, setting, plot, rising, falling action, dialogue, all those elements of drama that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. What larger meanings and implications does the play set forth and the film regarding slavery, its wide-reaching consequences, and the effects of racial prejudice on the human psyche? So not just the way that prejudice affects the victims, right? That's horrible. But think about how it affects the psyche of the perpetrators when they begin to feel that they have the absolute right to just think of themselves as being better than other human beings. Think of the effect that has upon what kind of people they become and what kind of children they might then raise, with that same mentality. And then the third option, while many are aware that slavery existed in our nation's history, some may still not grasp two important facts. One, the Atlantic slave trade was a brutal, horrific atrocity that victimized millions of innocent people with violence beyond imagination. And two, modern-day human beings are often enslaved in a different but equally life-altering way through the powerful force of peer pressure. Through a thoughtful comparison of the film version of director Steven Spielberg's Amistad and the poem Barbie Doll by Marge Piercy, one may see that both works set forth a common theme: the beliefs and values, or lack thereof, presented by a society in power can enslave masses of people, whether physically or mentally. So, this was a really interesting paper that a student wrote last year. And so, the idea here is that the Atlantic slave trade was beyond horrific, right? I mean, it's very difficult to find anything more horrific than that. But modern day human beings are also enslaved in a different, but maybe equally life altering way. Certainly not as harsh and as brutalizing, but that force of peer pressure. So it's an interesting comparison. To write a compelling essay from the above kind of thesis, you've got to forge a relationship between these two works, and that's what you're looking for if you choose option 3. Some sort of commonality, some sort of relationship you can forge. So indicate the similarities between them and be specific. What do the characters' actions and words and reactions share in common? What elements might make the plots of both works similar? What common themes bind them together? You could also spend time demonstrating how they might differ. In fact, you should do that. So how exactly do the two texts from vastly different time periods and parts of the world contrast from each other? Finally, give your readers the bottom line takeaway. How does the common theme that a society's beliefs and values, or lack thereof, can enslave large groups of people, whether it be literal physical enslavement or mental, emotional enslavement, how is that manifesting in both of these works? So that is an overview of paper 3, and I might just add that Amistad is a difficult film to watch. It is really difficult. There is a very violent scene in the beginning, and it is really heartbreaking to watch the suffering that the slaves go through. And so, it's a tough one to watch. But it's very much like Roots, if you ever saw the series Roots. It's hard to watch, but it is important because it makes us realize the true historical story of a lot of slaves in terms of what they actually endured on board those ships. So, thanks for listening, guys.